Welcome to Counsel and Community.
Welcome to Counsel and Community, where legal insight meets real-life impact. Sophia Morales here with the Nelson Law Group team to share practical guidance on navigating legal challenges while offering tips for personal growth and financial well-being. We are so excited that you've joined us here today. Welcome back with us, Brett and Sarah.
Hi, how are y'all?
So our topic today is going to be, before you divorce, the essential things to know. So, Brett, I know you're the legal beagle here. Tell us, what should someone think about before they make the decision to end their marriage? And what are some key factors they should consider yet often overlook?
That's a great question. I think the biggest thing is to consider is, well, whether or not a person's earned their way out of the marriage. And what I mean by that is if they sat down with their spouse and, bullet pointed out the issues that they perceive are causing the discord in the marriage, and give the other spouse the opportunity to work on those issues to see if the marriage can be reconciled. Obviously, if you're going to sit down with your list, you need to be prepared to receive a list from your spouse as well.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very, very unusual for there just to be discord on one side of the relationship. That's really step one. And then the second thing is, if you have kids, you need to consider that if you get divorced, that unscheduled time with them is going to go away. The early mornings, the late evenings, the quick lunches, from coming home from work or whatever, that impromptu time that isn't scheduled that's going to go away. And then finally, financially, it's the worst investment you can make. You're going to lose 50% of your net worth at least overnight.
What are some of the most critical financial considerations that a couple should take into account when they're contemplating divorce? I mean, you mentioned the 50% reduction in net worth, but I'm sure there's more than just that.
100%. The next thing is cash flow. How do you operate the two households on the same cash flow? If traditionally husbands and wives are both working in today's world, and you have some economies of scale through that. The whole family can sleep under one household, but if you are getting divorced, that's going to turn into two households. And so somebody is probably going to be displaced, if not both parties, into a new home. There's costs, there's expenses associated with that. And also, typically the earning power isn't equal. And under Texas's family code, the entitlement to spousal support is not very likely. And child support is also capped at $9,200 of currently of net resources. So, there's some limitations on the amount of financial support you're going to get from the primary breadwinner in the event that you are the person who will be primarily responsible for the care of these kids.
That's a lot of weight to consider as you're moving into something like this. It makes earning your way out of the marriage seem a little bit more desirable.
100%. I really believe that if people come into an initial consultation with our office, we typically walk people through the enormity of the decision. Some that have, are just on the edge and aren't really haven't made their minds up, hear that information. More often than not, the person that is gung-ho and dead set on getting divorced because of anger, emotions towards somebody else, they don't really, my experience, hear what we have to say.
Yeah.
Their minds are made up and they've got a course of action already mapped out.
Life can lead you to those points, I think.
Oh, sure can.
Yeah. Well, and co-parenting can be really complex. What are some of the points about co-parenting that people don't think about before they make the decision to split?
Well, that's a great question as well. I'm smiling so much because people with children, they come in and, they're thinking that their relationship with their spouse that's so difficult is over. And I remind them, no, it's just beginning because you're in the same home right now, and the amount of communication that you need is limited because you see every day what's going on. Once you're divorced and living in two separate households, the amount of communication has to increase if you're going to have the same amount of involvement or attempt to have the same amount of involvement with your kids. So Co-parenting in divorce, in my view, is actually more difficult than staying married. And also, if you have difficulty communicating with your spouse during the marriage, you shouldn't expect it to improve after the divorce.
You haven't been able to work it out under one roof, it becomes even more difficult when you've got email or phone connections in between the two of you, and it's harder to get all of the nonverbal communication that you get when you're face to face with someone.
Yeah, 100%. It's eye-opening for some if they sit down and really consider, again, just the practical impact on your ability to communicate with the mother or father of the children, um, because of the fact that you are now in two locations, not under one roof.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Well,
I
and
think, oh,
oh, go
sorry.
ahead. Go
No, I was
ahead,
just gonna
Sarah.
say,
Let's hear what you have to add.
I think too that the divorce process is just adversarial, and it sets you up. And so people start thinking, okay, when a text message has come through, instead of just going, oh, just answering it, is the other person setting me up for something? Are they trying to get documentation for court? So because they're in an adversarial situation, I think it puts an extra weight on that communication for them to make sure they say exactly the right thing.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, and
Sure.
that kind of thing can be used in court. Yes.
Which goes back to, we haven't talked about this much, but if you honor your spouse in all ways and in all things and at all times, you shouldn't have to worry about the communication coming into court because you've honored your spouse. It's those folks that are not honoring their spouse in their communications or in their treatment that need to be concerned about going to court.
I could see that definitely. Having been through a divorce and knowing how my ex behaved, I would have been very concerned about text messaging had it been a thing back when I was going through it, for sure.
We've recently had an experience where my view of my client's communication was that it was abusive, not honoring of his spouse. And before he met with me, I sent him the last 30 days worth of text messages and told him to read them and then report back to me about how he felt about what he had said. And he came in, looked like a beat dog. I mean, he was very remorseful, and going back and reading what he had written was, I would say, almost shameful for him. He felt shame about how he had communicated, which was a positive, quite frankly, for me, because that gave me some indication that there's some hope that he can change his behavior in the future, which would be positive for the 5 children that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was what occurred to me too when you said that his response was one of shame. It's like, okay, he's got a conscience and he does understand where he overstepped, and that's the beginning of being able to change.
100%. And people aren't generally evil in these cases. They've just behaved in a manner that was typically driven by emotion, seeing only through their things through their perspective, and then sometimes anger, other times fear.
Well, and speaking of other perspectives, a lot of times when a couple splits, it opens the door for additional personalities to come into play. New partners enter the picture with their own viewpoints on how things ought to be. What are some of the key factors to consider when you've got, a new partner showing up in one or both sides of this breaking apart relationship?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, my recommendation to all my clients is get your relationship with this existing person over with and finalized, and have the opportunity to reflect upon, preferably with professional help, on what went wrong in the relationship so that you can identify the pitfalls and your role in the demise of the relationship so that you don't repeat yourself. The divorce rate for second marriages is much higher than it is the initial divorce. And I believe that's because people just marry the same person with a different name. So that's a problem. The second thing about introducing a new spouse into the relationship is, will that spouse honor your decisions you made before they made them? In other words, most divorces in by an agreement, an agreed divorce decree, and in that the spouse has made some agreements with their other spouse. How's your new relationship going to receive those? Will they get jealous of the financial commitment you've made to your previous family? Will they be jealous about how well you work with your ex-spouse and the mother or father of your children? Those are things that need to be explored right away so that you don't have more problems down the road. On the other side, if you're the spouse who is not involved in the new relationship, there are really two ends of the spectrum. One, the children can have such a great relationship with that new person that they feel inclined to call that person mom or dad, or that person could be horrible to them and they are borderline abusive or in fact abusive to your children. So I've had people come into my office just boiling hot, mad because their baby called some other woman or man mom or dad. And my question to them is, and why are you upset that this human being has loved your child so much to earn that title?
That's a good perspective. Yeah.
It's not generally received very well initially, but then I ask them the other end of the spectrum. So would you rather have your child being abused? Because there's really there's no in between, because either a child feels loved, comfortable, safe, or they don't. You really think about that. That's what happens. A kid either feels safe or he doesn't. There's no in between. And I advocate and pray that every child feels safe in every household. And if your child is coming home from mommy or daddy's and not telling you excitedly about what happened in that household, you've created an environment that is unsafe for them.
That's a good point of reflection right there. Absolutely.
And I think it's a thing too where people don't think about this part. They're so in a hurry to kind of get this over with because they're so miserable. They don't think about somebody else parenting their child, and that you've lost control over what that looks like. You've lost control over what it looks like in the other home, what they feed them, what they do, as long as
the amount of screen time, bedtime, all the things.
Yeah, you've lost control over that, and you've lost control over who's going to be another primary adult figure in your child's life, and that is a huge thing to consider when you're thinking about moving towards separating your family.
And then go all the way back to earning your way out of the divorce. You start talking about these things. How bad really is it?
And that is a question I kind of wanted to come back to you on. How bad does it really have to be? Is there a point where it's so bad that earning your way out of the marriage really isn't an option?
Well, you have to ask yourself this: is the marriage toxic? So toxic that we are creating generational mental health issues and creating a dysfunctional normal, if you will, for our children? And are we going to perpetuate this cycle into the future? If it's that type of relationship, you're going to have to either go into some intense individual and marital counseling to create a better environment for your children, or you're going to have to get divorced. So when I first started practicing 30 some years ago, there was this thing, I'm going to stay married for the children. That's probably the worst decision you can make, because staying married for the children is teaching that of tolerance and acceptance of what is more than likely unacceptable behavior.
Yeah, I would second that. Having had parents who made that choice for a number of years until the kids were out of the house, I think it would have been much healthier in hindsight if they had just parted ways at the point that they realized they were not reconcilable, as opposed to years in détente, basically.
Well, unless your kids are very aware, they will carry forward the sins of my mother and father into the next generation and will more than likely perpetuate the same thing in their own home. We know what we know, and we parent based upon what we've been taught. And if that's what we've been taught, not by what was told to us, but what was shown to us, the odds of something happening that's different is very low.
Yeah, well, this is true. We're coming up on the end of our episode here, so I think it's time for our mindful moment, Sarah.
So this is the opposite of getting divorced, right? Is ways that you can appreciate and love your partner. And I think it's a really good idea to sit down during some quiet time and just make a list of 10 things that you really love about your partner. The kind of love of, that where you feel it in your body. And just kind of make that list. And if it's appropriate, present it to them. I also recommend to people maybe have a shared note on your phone where you can, things I love about my partner. And if they do something cool, you can just type it in real quick and they'll get the alert. It's a really nice way for the other person to feel appreciated, because that when we appreciate our partners and we're curious about them and we love on them in little small ways, it really goes a long way towards building the marriage.
And just to add to that, if you find yourself at the point where you don't think you love your partner, start thinking about what they do well for your family. Be grateful for that, because even if you don't think you love them, they are, if you have children together, they are still the mother, father of your children. And you need to be grateful for that and the role that they play in raising who those kids are. You always need to remember that the children that you have are half mom, half dad. There's no other way around it.
Yeah, and that's what makes them so unique and special in this world.
100%.
All right. And thank you so much for your insights today. This has been a wonderful discussion.
It's our pleasure.
Thanks.
And thank you to the listeners out there who joined us. Remember, for more insights and exclusive resources tailored to navigating life's challenges, be sure to check out the Nelson Law Group app. It's specifically designed to support you through the divorce process with expert advice and community resources. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast for more topics on living a better life and hopefully not, but if you need to, divorcing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments. For more exclusive content, including helpful guides like our Divorce Care Guide, download our app today and get the support you need right at your fingertips.